varsity kids individually, I did want to kind of talk about some of the achievements of our varsity program. Some of the records that we had this year, our overall record was 18-9. That was tied for the best record in school history. Okay, there's two other teams that were also 18-9. We were 6-1 in conference. That's the most wins we've ever had in a conference. When you look at some of the, in that blue book, there's a lot of bolded records that as a team we accomplished this year. To just rattle off a couple of them really quick, we have the school record for points in a season. We have the school record for points in a game. We have most threes in a game, fewest points allowed, only having 14. Another game where we had 20, and that Normandy game, I think we only gave up 6 in the first half. And one of the things I was really kind of most proud about was late in the year that we did not lose a game in February. That we were able to win 6 in a row, and that was the first time that our school's been able to win 6 in a row since 2011. So it really is a very accomplished varsity team with a lot of those records. And then I will talk about some of the players individually here once I find my stuff. Get the gloves on. First one that I want to talk about is our tall freshman, Albert Kuljan. Okay, so probably more than I should, I do like to talk about even our underclassmen, especially our very special freshmen that we had this year. Oliver is something that in 16 years I've never had as a coach. I mean, to have the size and athleticism of that as a freshman, and to come in and contribute at the varsity level, and really fit in with the upperclassmen. He got picked on a little bit, but they also mentored him, and he also showed them that, I might be a lot younger than you guys, but I'm also going to be a force to be reckoned with. Oliver is going to have a very bright future here at Rockwood Summit. If you look through some of those records already, for blocks in a game, blocks in a season, blocks in a career, he's already up there. And I think that we'll see that as he moves forward to his sophomore and junior and senior year, he will be a force to be reckoned with at the varsity level for a long time to come. Okay, so Oliver. Next one is going to be Max Roth. Kind of will be a recurring theme of a lot of what I talk about tonight is that, Max not only had a really good JV year for us, but he was a kid that in practice really pushed us every day because Max can score. I mean, he can shoot the ball, he can attack the rim, and he can finish a variety of ways. And I think that, with the seniors that we have leaving, that Max is going to have an opportunity next year to show us that what he can do at the varsity level for extended minutes of time. And I'm really looking forward to that. So, sophomore, Max Roth. Junior, Zach Wyatt. Zach was a kid last year that he didn't get to play basketball. Zach tore his ACL, and he didn't even get cleared until a couple weeks right before the season. And I think it was probably not the season that Zach wanted. I think that he wanted to come out and, play up to a level that he thought he was able to. And we had some growing pains and, shooting the ball. And I think what I liked most was at the end of the year when we let him go back down to our JV so he could get some minutes and get some experience, that we saw the Zach of old. We saw the Zach who could score, the Zach who was a really good defender, the Zach who was a really good leader on the floor. And even though Zach didn't get the minutes at the varsity level that he wanted, you never heard him complain. Every day he comes to practice, "Hey coach, how you doing?" Super excited. Hey, he's glad to be there. He wants to talk basketball with you. The enthusiasm that he has, not just about basketball, but anything you talk to him about is amazing. But like we said about Max, especially if you couple those two together, those are probably, arguably, the best two shooters that we have in our program. Okay? And I think that next year they're going to be a whole lot of fun to watch, especially when they're in tandem together. So, junior Zach White. Zorn Saber. Zorn is a huge spark for us. Zorn had some games where he started. Zorn had some games where he didn't play a single minute. Okay, but I will tell you that every second that he was on the floor, he always gave it his all. And there's games where, a lot of our games out there, he would always draw the toughest defensive assignment. Whoever their best player is, we would say, "Zorn, your job is to stop him." And he did a great job of it. Offensively, Zorn understood and he tried not to do too much. We talk about in practice that Zorn, I think, Zorn likes to shoot the ball. And I think that Zorn is a better shooter than he even gives himself credit for. A couple air balls in the game, that's okay. But I will also say that you look at games, some of the games that we had very much in hand and it was late in the game, Zorn wasn't out to get his own points. He was a very unselfish player who was always willing to make that extra pass and help his teammates get their points. And that really goes in basketball a long way, in life that goes a really long way. And Zorn's one of those kids that on the floor and off the floor is a really good kid. And I hope to have him around next year to see how much better we can get. So junior, Zorn Saber. Ian Bowden. I have a picture of Ian his freshman year playing basketball, and Ian was about that tall. He was arguably one of the shortest kids on the team, and now he is one of the tallest, longest, lankiest players that we have. And Ian played a ton of JV basketball this year. When he was out there, he was one of the best players that they had. Constantly on the floor, very aggressive. In practice, really gave us a look that was tough to replicate. The 6'4" kid who was really aggressive to go get rebounds, you always had to bounce out, and has a pretty good basketball IQ about himself. I think that, like I talked about with some of the other kids, the experience and size that we are losing next year, that the frame that he has and his basketball IQ, that he will have the opportunity to get a lot of varsity minutes, especially with a good offseason. So looking forward to seeing what Ian can do next year as a senior. Ian, go. Grant Gibson? I will say this, even though he's not here, Grant transferred over from Fox, probably was the lightest kid that we had on our team. that I don't think he ever took any moment we had way too serious. He also sweats profusely. But if there was an optional practice, Grant was there. If Oliver got a dunk, Grant was the first one up off the bench to celebrate. A really good teammate, and he will be the first one to tell you, he's like, I play basketball so I can stay in shape for football. I play basketball so I am not overweight when I go run track and throw the javelin. He's a kid who just loves being around these guys and he loves competing. And I love that about Grant. So even though he's not here, junior Grant Gibson. Roman Gilbert. Roman, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, so don't take offense to this, a couple of you guys. Roman really benefited from some of the injuries that we had this year. You know, early in the season, he didn't get a ton of minutes. The minutes that he had, he generally would, right, game one, I think he was like 0 for 5 in our first game, maybe 1 for 5? That was bad. And didn't get a ton of minutes. We had some injuries, and there was 2 or 3 opportunities around the Clayton game, around our Union game, where Roman played significant minutes for us and showed that on the offensive end of the floor that he was a really good scorer. Not just sitting in the corner shooting threes, but he attacks the rim on back cuts. He attacks the rim on the dribble and doesn't always make the smartest decision, but he was trying to make something happen. I think that when you look at what he did in practice, he's a really hard kid to guard. I know that in the classroom I had him, and he's a very smart, at least math student. I don't know how the rest of your grades are. We'll find out later when we get out here. But offensively, Roman very seldom makes the wrong decision. Shot doesn't always go in, but Roman always seems to be in the right spot at the right time. In that high basketball IQ is really hard to come by. You can tell that he's played a lot of basketball. And I think that next year, like a lot of those guys standing right there, and with a lot of the guys sitting at that table who are leaving us, that he's going to have a lot of opportunities to get not just 7 or 8 minutes a game, but 25, 26, 27 minutes a game, and be one of the guys that is at the top of scouting reports of, we've got to stop this guy from scoring. So, really good junior year. Roman Gilbert. Our last junior is Quincy Thomas. It's hard. Well, I'll say this. I appreciate it. Most of the other coaches in the area don't, to believe that Quincy's only a junior. I feel like he has been around this program for a really long time because when we play games since he's been a freshman, the ball is always in his hands. And very seldom do I have to worry about the other team taking the ball from him. Really what I have to worry about more than anything is at the end of games, him not having the ball in his hands because I constantly scream at him about that. But Quincy had a really good junior year for us. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about him is that because the ball's in his hands so much, if Quincy wanted to, he could have double or triple the shot attempts. But he didn't. He led our team in assists again for the 3rd straight year. When you look at defensive assignments like Zoran, Quincy always drew a really tough guard. I was sitting in an all-district meeting, and the coach from Washington said that he was the best on-the-ball defender that he had seen all year. And the Vianney coach, who I greatly respect, said the same thing, and we hadn't even played this year. That when Quincy puts his head to it, and he's very determined to do that, that he can be a fantastic defender on top of being a very good offensive player for us. Have a little bit more to say about him later. I think my biggest complaint is that sometimes his dad's tough to put up with. So. And I will also say there were 2 timeouts this year that I didn't even get to say a word because Quincy and his dad were arguing the whole time. And at the end of the timeout, I went, all right, back on the floor, here we go. So their relationship and their dynamic is fun. And we'll get to that one too. So if we're done talking about the underclassmen, we will bring up our seniors. So the first one is Carter Peoples. Carter is, well, as you guys can probably tell, Carter is probably one of the most loved guys that we have on our team. Carter's also one of those that I have the freshman picture of him. It might be the same one. He might even be a junior. He looks like he's 10 years old playing freshman basketball. And, you know, to see him grow, he still looks like he's 10 years old. But, you know, Carter's one that, you know, like, we have a lot of seniors, and unfortunately, juniors and sophomores and freshmen that, you know, they don't get as much playing time as they want. They probably don't get as much playing time as they deserve. Carter shows up to anything you ever ask him to do. It's summer camp for the youth kids, he's there. I need help running junior tryouts for 7th grade basketball on a Wednesday night, he's there. You open up the gym, he's there. And he's there and he's working hard and he's always doing the right thing. I think that my favorite moment for Carter this year, and I know it was Carter's favorite moment, that first half of senior night where Carter couldn't miss, and it felt like the entire stand was going to come out, was one of the coolest feelings that I had all year. And to see his face light up, and then the second half didn't hit as much, but in the first half, we were on fire. You know, and Carter's one of the guys, he hit one of the threes when we hit 12 against Afton. You know, and anytime that he went in, he was always working his butt off. He was happy to get those minutes. And I appreciate every second I've got to spend with Carter the last 4 years. Okay, so Sam Laker. You know, Sam was a kid that when he was a sophomore, got a ton of minutes for us. You know, we were really looking so forward to that growth that Sam was going to have and that big leap he was going to have to his junior year. And, you know, unfortunately, he got hurt. He wasn't able to play at all as a junior. And it kind of lingered through, and we didn't see Sam a lot in the summer. But when Sam came back on that very first day, when soccer was done, we knew that we had a post player that we hadn't had in a while. A big, strong, physical kid. You know, and it took a little bit of time for Sam to realize, you know, his potential that he had. I love that we had a couple Saturday practices, and Coach Jansen came back and worked with Sam. They had such a good relationship. You know, and you really saw that once Sam realized that he was bigger, faster, stronger than anybody else out there playing, you could see his dominance on the floor. You know, Sam, late in the year, especially after Christmas, almost averaged 10 rebounds a game for us and 8 to 10 points a game. Sam had, what was it, and I didn't believe this at first either, 23 rebounds in our Melville game. Okay, and at first we thought it was 19, and you go back and check the film, 23 rebounds. Okay, it's going to lead Summit as the single game record. He's also going to hold records for single season rebound records. That he is a force to be reckoned with. Okay? He's also one of the guys that when we run drills, I didn't want to guard him. I always would come home bruised around him. But he is going to be a senior that, like all the seniors, we're greatly going to miss. So, senior Sam Laker. Gavin this year, again, kind of a transition year for him. Last year with Sam being hurt, Gavin started over half of our games. And then in those games, he got to play 24, 25, 26 minutes. And this year with Sam coming back and Oliver late, Gavin gave up some of his minutes. Gavin gave up some of his rebounds, and Gavin gave up some of his points. Okay, but I can tell you that I never heard him complain about it. You can tell he wasn't happy about it. You can tell that he wanted to play more. Okay, but he took his role on that team, and the minutes that he had, he was a million miles an hour out there. He constantly gave you his all. And Gavin still thinks he's a really good three-point shooter. In some games he is. Some games he isn't. Okay, but he also goes in and he makes plays happen. And when we needed defensive stops, Gavin was always in the game. Okay, when people got in foul trouble, we could put Gavin in. You never had to worry about him. And I know that it had to be hard, and I know I talked to Gavin after our last game. I appreciate the role that he took on this year, because it wasn't the one that he wanted. And it wasn't the one that he had last year, but it was the one that we needed this team for him to have. Okay, so even though his points went down, his rebounds went down, and his minutes went down, because Gavin takes on that role, our wins double this year. And successful teams need more Gavins on. Okay, so I will say I'm fortunate enough that I get to see him on the golf course every single day. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of candid conversations. And he will be one of those guys that goes down as he'll be one of my favorite players, but I can tell you that he's probably going to end up being a lifelong friend for me. So, Gavin Greenwood. Tyler for stroke. Tyler is a two-year starter for us. And really, if you think about the road that Tyler had from his freshman year where he started to where he has ended as a senior, it's such a good journey that he went on. From struggling and not being able to play his freshman year, feel like he always got hit in the head. He always had a bloody nose his freshman year. He had to play against Cookies a lot. To where last year and this year, he was one of those guys that I never felt like I could take off the floor. Like, you always had a secondary point guard on the floor. You always had a really good defender. I thought that we would always have someone who would make really good decisions late in the game. And then partway north or hold around, he shot that ball like 10 feet left instead of dribbling the clock out. I told the guys after the game I would have bet my life savings that any of those other guys up there would make that bad decision, but Tyler would have been my last bet. I lost my whole life savings on that. But Tyler's one of those guys that, and I'll talk about this later, but he's just a good kid on and off the floor. Every year at Summit, teachers get to recognize someone. They call it their Falcon Flight. They just say it's their student of the year. And Tyler is going to be mine for this year. He's going to be one of those kids that I really miss. I feel like he just does everything that we've ever asked him. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be there in the morning, so I thought this would be a good time to say congratulations. But Tyler will go down with one of our records, free throw percentage in a season, and he was only 3 assists shy of making our top 10 for assists in a season, which is pretty impressive considering we had another guy on the team who was in the top 10 this year for it. So, senior Tyler for sure. Shane Connor. You know, Shane, a lot like a lot of these guys, I look at the freshman pictures of them because they sit in my room. You know, you see Shane, and well, he looks a lot similar now than he did his freshman year. He's just about 3 inches taller. But his freshman year, watching him play freshman basketball, Shane was the scorer on that team. Then you watched him play JV basketball, and he was the scorer on that team. And then last year, he was the scorer on our team. And this year for us, everybody knew it. Everybody knew it was coming, and he was the scorer on our team. And Shane loves basketball. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. The gym's open, he's going to be there. The gym's not open, he's going to be there. He's going to try to stay late until you kick him out. You know, early in the season, we lost a game to Priory, and a game we shouldn't have lost. It was the day after Christmas break. We hadn't touched the ball for almost 4 days. Shane didn't get to play that much. And the next day at shoot around, he came in and said, like, Coach, what did I do yesterday? And you could tell, like, it meant a lot to him. And he wasn't asking for more minutes. He wasn't asking for more shots. He was just asking for, what can I do to be a better player? And at that point, he was still leading us in points. You know, and he had still had a game earlier that year where he'd scored like 27 or 28. He just wanted to know what he could do better. And I think one of the things that I appreciate now, not in the moment ever, but Shane would like question you, like, why do I need to do that? Because I think it helped him be a better player. Like he like, Shane, I need you to do this. You want to just say, yes, sir. Well, why do I need to do that? And I think him understanding that why makes him a really good basketball player. I look forward to seeing him for the next couple of years go play at the next level. He has those aspirations to go play. I just got an email on Friday that Shane's going to play in early May in a Missouri versus Illinois All-Star game. That'll be at Oakville High School. And I'm excited to have a kid represent Rockwood Summit in an All-Star game. That hasn't happened in a long time. Okay, so I still get to see him play here for the next couple weeks. I see him, he comes and talks to me all the time still. But I'm really excited to see him play these next couple weeks in the All-Star game, and then when his decision comes out where he wants to play the next 2 years or 4 years, however that works, I'm going to be excited to see him play at the next level. So, Shane Conley. And before I move on to the last week, because I did this for a lot of guys, if you look in that record book, Shane is in there for a lot of stuff. You know, he has the most points in a game. He has points in a career. Ended up being number 5. Okay. That he holds a lot of records for us on the offensive end, and he will. Well, he's going to be a tough one to replace. So the last senior we have is Dominic Nenninger. And kind of the opposite of what I said about Quincy, the high school coaches in St. Louis are very excited that Dom's gone finally. The Oakville coach who I'm friends with outside of this always says, like, is that big thick kid gone finally? I'm like, no, he's still a senior. And somehow Dom always plays really well against Oakville, which makes me happy. You know, but Dom's another one of those kids that I can tell you from the very first time I met him, probably in like 4th or 5th grade, coming to basketball and football camps, I knew and everyone else knew around him that he was going to be really special. And he has lived up to every single ounce of that hype. Look through the record books in ours, look through the record books in our football program, and then you look at the success that those teams have. It's no coincidence that a lot of that is in part because he's on your team and he's out there. He's one of those kids that he just leads, and he doesn't lead by talking. You tell Dom something, that's what you get out of Dom. Dom leads because he does all the things right
when he's supposed to do things right. He doesn't talk, he doesn't showboat very often. He just does things right. He's another one of those guys that, you know, you ask him to come to things and he shows up. Hey, I always understood that basketball wasn't Dom's first sport. You know, he was a football first kid, but I also knew that Dom had a passion for basketball, and he was good at basketball. And when he showed up, he was going to be the best ones. I was just always surprised that Dom couldn't touch a basketball for 4 months, and all of a sudden, he'd come in and be your best shooter 2 days later somehow. He didn't airball like 5 or 6 too, but he was always one of our best shooters. You know, Dom is going to end as number 6 all-time scoring. Okay, he's like 8 points behind Shane. That's Dom's probably not liking that very much. You know, but Dom also didn't get to play very much this year. Dom was through a bunch of injuries, and late in the year, when Dom didn't start, Dom's healthy, he's back, he's clear, he's not starting. And people said, why isn't he starting? And I said, because I think he gives us a lot of stuff coming off our bench right now. He gives you toughness, he gives you leadership, and you can change your starting lineups around, and he did that for 3 or 4 games. Okay? And again, Dom never complained about it. You know, we got 6 seniors up there. On senior night, only one of them doesn't get to start. Okay? And I said at the very beginning before, you know, he took the floor that he got to start more than any of those other kids. He has more starts than all those other ones. He says, okay, didn't question. And he came off the bench, played for us, and then, you know, when he got all the way healthy, he got back into his starting role. I appreciate that kind of caringness, not just about himself, but about the team and really those other guys that he played with from the time they were there. I mean, that was one of the things I talked about Sam in the summer. You know, Sam said, I just want to play basketball. I've been playing with these guys, and I've been playing with Dom my whole life. I just want to play basketball with them. And those seniors, they just want to do that. And they just want to play basketball, and they just want to be around each other. Collectively, that senior group will really be missed. I know that I'm going to miss coaching Dom a lot because I've done it for 4 years. So, senior Dominic Nenger. Hey, and while she's taking your picture, if you guys want to get a drink or use the restroom, this is a great, like, 2-minute break that I need too. I know I'm on the clock, right?